Welcome to Harvesting Clouds, where we take a practical approach to learning and leveraging clouds.
This video is part of the series where we are comparing Azure Virtual Machines and AWS EC2 instances. In this video, we'll see how to back up EC2 instances. Here, I'm already logged into AWS Management Console. To back up EC2 instances, you will need to create something called Backup Plan and then assign EC2 instances as resources to that particular plan. So let's dive right in. You will begin by navigating to Services and then clicking on AWS Backup. In here, if you have logged in for the very first time, you will see the option to create backup plan right from this particular screen. If you have any resources like me, then AWS will present you with a dashboard view. You will navigate to Backup Plans and then click on Create Backup Plan. Backup plan is like a blueprint of how frequently your backup should be taken and for how long that backup should be kept. We'll see how that translates to in the wizard. So here you have three options. You can create a backup plan from existing plans, like using a template. You can create a new plan from scratch, or you can define a plan using a JSON file, which you can create yourself, or you can find multiple JSON files, multiple templates online. So if you're using to start from an existing plan, you can click on this particular dropdown and AWS will present you with a lot of templates. If you have created backup plans earlier, it will show you those as well. For now, we'll create a backup plan from scratch so that we understand each and every concept related to the backup plan. To begin with, we'll provide it with a name. Generally, the plan name should have a proper naming convention, something to identify that this name is for a backup plan, and then the department or application for which you are going to back up the EC2 instances. Now the next step is backup rule configuration. We'll need to give it a rule name. For example, we can say daily and weekly backup for 30 days. And then the schedule is this is where you select the frequency. So in fact, we can only select one frequency at a time. We can create multiple rules in a backup plan. So the first frequency I'm going to select is daily. Other options you have is every 12 hours, every week, or once in a month. You can even specify custom cron expression. If you want the backup to happen, for example, let's say after every 2 hours, you can do that by using the cron expression. Then backup window, you can either let AWS decide when the backup should be taken, or you can customize the backup window that every day the backup should be taken at 5 a.m. UTC time, and it should start within 8 hours of this particular time window. For now, I'll let the default, that is use backup window defaults. And then lifecycle is where you decide what should happen to that particular backup. So when it should get transitioned to a cold storage. In a cold storage, you are charged less for the storage consumption of the backup than what it would be in a normal scenario. You can create, let's say, days after creation, and then you can expire it after 30 days. Expire is after how long the backup should be deleted. Default option is never. You should always set it to some value, let's say months after creation or weeks after creation. And it should be at least 90 days after the transition to cold storage. So I can say expire after, let's say, 180 days. So, sorry, since it is in weeks, I'll select, let's say, 25 weeks after creation. So how the lifecycle will work is, first the backup will be created during this particular backup window every day. 30 days after the creation of every day's backup, that backup will transition to a cold storage. And then 25 weeks after the creation of the backup, it will expire. That means that backup will be deleted after a particular time. Backup vault, I am selecting a default backup vault. You can create a new backup vault. Backup vault is like a storage account. This is where your backups are kept. This is a encrypted space where all your backups of the EC2 instances are kept, and then you can restore from those backups. Now, this is a unique feature for AWS. Right now, this feature is not available in Microsoft Azure. This feature is that the backup, whatever you are taking, let's say your VM is in US East region, and then the backups that you are taking, they will also be existing in the East region. If that region goes down for some reason and you want to have disaster recovery for that region set up, you want that particular backup to be copied to a different region. So that is what you configure over here. Copy to other regions. This is an optional setting, but I highly recommend that if you are configuring backup for mission critical applications, you should definitely consider configuring this option. It's as easy as selecting a different region. Let's say my VM is in US East, so I am going to copy to US West, which is geographically a very separate region. And I can click on add copy and copy it to a different region other than US East. I can create multiple copies of this. For now, I'm going to click remove. And then I can create tags added to the recovery points that are created. Or in addition to that, I can create tags added to the backup plan as well. As we discussed earlier, the tags, they help you categorize your resources better. There can be multiple tags. These tags also help you identify your resources, run automations, and when you are running the billing reports, these also help you in the filtering. All that is left is click on create plan, and the plan is created for you. Now that we have the backup plan, we need to assign resources. And EC2 instance is the resource that we created earlier that we want to assign to this particular plan. To do that, all I need to do is scroll down and click on assign resources. You can provide a name to the resource assignment. This is a dummy name. You should have appropriate name following all the naming conventions that you have. If you need to provide some additional access to AWS Backup Service, you should configure an IAM role. This is the role that AWS Backup Service will assume or will impersonate while creating the backup, connecting to that VM and creating the backup of that particular VM or EC2 instance. You can assign resources in two ways. The first one is leveraging tags that you created earlier. You provide a key and a value, for example, department and value as accounts, and it will find all the resources that can be backed up using that particular key value pair. For this particular video, we are going to use resource ID. And then these are the resource types that you can back up. Your storage gateway, your DynamoDB, your EBS, your storage that is. For now, we are going to back up EC2 instance. And then you will need to provide an instance ID. You can find this instance ID from the instances page under the EC2 instance section. Or when you click inside this box, it will give you a pop-up and will show you all the EC2 instances that you have. For this one, for the second instance, I already provided a name as well. So it helps me much more than the first, where I did not provide any name to my EC2 instance. So I know that this is the instance for which I want to configure the backup. I click on that and click on assign resources. That's it. The backup is created. So that particular resource is assigned to that particular plan. And the very first backup that will be happening on this particular EC2 instance will be when the next window hits. So we configured it to run daily. So the next window will hit around whenever that next default window that we configured earlier. We set it to default. So AWS will decide if we would have configured it manually by providing a time. Then within the 8 hours of that particular window, before or after, the backup will be created. Now there is a way to force the backup to happen. if let's say you are going to perform a maintenance activity, you want to take a backup of your EC2 instance before you start that maintenance activity. To do that, you can do something called on-demand backup. So to create an on-demand backup, that what you need to do is navigate to the protected resources section. In here, you will see the option for create an on-demand backup. Click on this option. Select the resource type for which you want to create the backup. Select the instance ID for that particular EC2 instance. You can select create a backup now and your backup will be created right now. Or you can customize a backup window. You know that the maintenance or some patching is going to occur tomorrow at 5 a.m. So you will configure the backup to happen around 2 to 3 hours prior to that particular time window. Similar to how we configured the lifecycle before while configuring the backup plan, you can configure the lifecycle over here. And then you can select the backup vault where this on-demand backup will go. You can select the IAM role and click on create on-demand backup. As soon as I do, it will trigger the process behind the scene where the backup of that particular instance will be configured and created. Later on, if something happens to your virtual machine or EC2 instance, then you will be able to restore your EC2 instance from this particular backup. This is the job, configuring the backup for you. Now, few minutes have passed and that job that we created earlier, that has now completed. You can see that so from the status. What that means is that now we have one full-fledged backup for the EC2 instance that we have. I can navigate to protected resources now. And in here, I'll click on the instance ID for my instance. And over here, I'll see that there is one backup. All the backups will be listed here. And I can see that there is one backup that was created at this particular time. I can click on this backup and then restore this backup. We'll see soon how that restore experience looks like. But before that, one quick tip is if you have lots and lots of backups, you can click on this particular small icon, the gear icon, and then in the pop-up for preferences, you can change the page size to whatever you want. You can have 10 recovery points displayed on one screen or even 100 recovery points displayed on one screen. And once you have large number of recovery points here, you can leverage the filter to filter through the recovery points. So for now, I only have one backup. So I'll click on this particular backup and then hit restore. Now, let's say something happened during the maintenance window and something went corrupt on my EC2 instance. So I'm trying to restore the backup, restore from the backup, creating a new EC2 instance from that particular backup. So just like creating a new instance, you need to provide an instance type of that particular instance. So that is what you are selecting over here. What is the number of vCPUs and the number of gigabytes of memory that that particular instance will have. And then you will configure the virtual private cloud, that is your virtual network, where that EC2 instance will be launched. You will select a subnet in that particular VPC, and then you will also select a security group in that VPC. Finally, you provide an IAM role that will automatically deploy AWS credentials to the EC2 instance. And then to restore the role, if you have configured any role that AWS Backup will assume when creating and managing the backup, it's like an impersonation that AWS Backup service will do. If there are specific services that the AWS Backup needs to configure, then you can specify a specific role or you can set it to default role. Finally, once you have all the settings done, click on Restore Backup and that's it. Your backup, you will be able to restore an EC2 instance if it goes corrupt during a maintenance window or for any reason if you have backup configured. So it is very, very essential that you configure backups as a best practice on all your production workloads. On mission critical workloads, make sure you configure the backup with a copy to a separate region configured on the backup as well. That's all for this video. To sum up, we saw in this particular video that how to create a backup on EC2 instances and then how to restore from that backup on the EC2 instances. In the subsequent videos, we'll be looking at other aspects of EC2 instances like monitoring of EC2 instances. Thanks for tuning in.